Welcome to the Brave Podcast, everyone. My name is Connie Jacob. I am your host. And today, not only are we on a podcast, but we are on video because I have my friend Kim Westlund with me today. Welcome, Kim.
Hello. So good to be here with you, Connie.
Well, it's always a treat to talk to you because you have so much expertise in the area of vision and in the area of creativity. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what it looks like to push boundaries. I was on
Mhm.
a webinar this morning, and one of the ladies was mentioning this idea of going against society's checklists. And I thought about that. I thought there's a real hunger for people to know how to push the boundary, but not being annoying, not be obnoxious, to be able to dream big. And I think a lot of times people shut down because they don't know how to do that. And so you and I, we've had so many wonderful conversations around that. I'd love to start the conversation by maybe asking you a little bit about what kind of bravery it might take to even think about pushing boundaries.
Yeah, it's such a great question because I think whether we're aware of it or not, so many of us need to be doing this in our businesses, in our lives. And sometimes it's just not an obvious thing that we're doing, but we're actually doing it. We're either kind of shrinking back or we're taking new ground or we're pushing ourselves to do more. So, when it comes to bravery and doing bigger things, I think one thing that comes to mind for me is how I needed to, for my own in my own journey, keep my failures away from my identity. And that's really, I might have just said a mouthful there, but I think that's a big one to understand because in order to take new ground or to push our boundaries out and do some bigger things, we have to know who we are. And sometimes when we fail, sometimes when things just don't go the way we think it's going to go, I think we tend to want to shrink back a little bit, and at least I know I have in my life that it makes me want to kind of retreat a little and maybe reevaluate, and not that that's a bad thing, but we can't stay there. We can maybe reevaluate, but then it's time to push back again and go, okay, what did I learn? Now I can maybe step out. But if I've attached my identity to some of the things that have gone wrong, then I'm in real trouble. So for me, it's about really keeping that separation clear and to make sure that, hey, it's okay. Failure's a part of the process sometimes, and now we need to try again. So I think that that's the first thing that comes to mind for me.
That's incredible. I actually literally just shared that this morning on this webinar that I was
Oh,
on.
wow.
Yeah, look at how aligned we are. It always blows
I
my
had no
mind.
idea.
But we were talking about the top 3 secrets to overcoming this idea of not being enough and being
Oh,
rooted
okay.
in who we are. And this idea that bravery might come from who you want to be is probably who you are. Because I have no desire to be
Mm.
a mathematician. I have no desire to push the boundaries in that realm at all. And so it gives you a sign of who are you is who you really want to be. Do you want to be an innovator? Well, then you probably are. And to take those brave steps into being an innovator and being that culture creator.
Yeah, there's something deep inside just kind of pulling you, right? And even having that desire to go into that unfamiliar territory. Sometimes that's not a natural thought to people, but for me it's a bit of a pull. I want to always be experiencing newer things and going beyond where I'm at, but sometimes that's tough for some folks. So yeah, even recognizing, am I wired for that? Is that something that I really am okay with just venturing out and doing?
Yes. And when it comes to being wired for it, there are some who are, and even those who aren't, they can learn. They can learn how to. What are your
Absolutely.
thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think again, it's that recognizing what may be holding you back. And the big one, the real obvious one is fear. Again, it could go back to some failures that we've experienced. I know that certainly played a role with me, but understanding what those things are. So I think being very self-aware and understanding where some things have maybe tripped you up. And because you're right, that can be overcome. Those skills can be absolutely reset or even cultivated from the ground up. And so much of it is also in, I think, just grounding yourself properly every day. I know for me, that's been something that's been really just important. I'm just going to say that mindset renewal, that place where I come to where I don't just start my day, at least I know if I try and start my day just randomly and I just kind of jump in, I don't have any structure or thoughts around how I'm going to approach my day. I can sometimes that can cause me to be tripped up. So if I'm properly grounding and really understanding, okay, what maybe are my challenges today? Maybe I should hit those first. Maybe I just need to have a plan, a game plan for moving forward. So that's maybe another thing to think about, is to really just be very intentional about how you're approaching every day and what that looks like. And that can actually benefit you as well.
This
What
is a
about you, Connie?
strategy. Oh,
What do you
so
think
good.
about that?
Well, I love that because I think a lot of times people are like, I would like to,
Mm,
but how do I? What are these steps? And I think you just gave the probably the most important step in pushing the boundary, reaching new horizons, dreaming big, is this daily cultivation of our hearts and
yeah,
getting grounded. I think our society is really big on looking good out here, but not being good in here. And
absolutely.
so I think that you've hit the nail on the head. That is the first step. I know for me, I am always thinking about where do I want to see change?
Mm,
Um, where am I dissatisfied with something? I know for me, a lot of that is in the school system, and it's come from personal experience of not only being in schools, but having my boys go through school and seeing how things have not worked out very well for them. And I see the kids that it's not working for, and I'm dissatisfied. But instead of going on Facebook and complaining about it, I'm like, what can we do about it? And it feels big and it feels way out there, but why could we not start on the micro, just the little baby
yeah.
steps of having conversations or contributing in ways that are right in front of us right now, where I feel like at least we're taking ground and I'm being a contribution. And I think that if people sometimes can flip the script of instead of going, well, I don't know how to push the boundary, I don't know what to do. It's like, well, what do you see in front of you right now? And what's pulling on your
Mm,
hamstrings? That for me is usually
yeah.
second step.
Yeah, well, I heard you say is that you're more not problem focused, you're more solution focused instead of being problem focused. So you're right, going on Facebook or whatever platform and just complaining about something is really not effective, other than gathering a whole bunch of people doing the same thing. And then that really doesn't solve anything. So I love that you come up with a solution focused approach. I think that's really important.
Well, and then it gives us some kind of agency, and we're not going to change the world in a month or in a day or even in a year, but knowing that we're contributing to constantly pushing forward, I think
Hmm.
is really encouraging, and it leads to more wins. I mean, what did I say over youth at risk for so many years? I'm like, they just need a win. And it's the same
Yeah.
thing with us. We just need small wins to keep us going.
Yeah, there's momentum in that, right? When you have one and you start piling them up a little bit and then there's some bit of reflection, how motivating is that to see that, you know what? My effort was worth something. Even if it was small, it still is moving in the right direction. So that's such a great point, Connie. I love that.
And when it comes to the work that you do a lot of work around helping people find vision, because you can't
Hmm.
push a boundary if you don't have a starting point, a focal point. And so when it comes
Yeah.
to having vision and boundaries, like what are some of the things that you're focusing on with that?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think vision is so important for our future. It's just one of those things that has really become so apparent to me. It's why I'm so passionate about it, because vision takes us out of the now. It gives us that 50,000 foot view or that bird's eye view, and it gives us the big picture of things, which I think is so important. It's so easy for us sometimes to get caught up in the minute details of a circumstance, or just really get in that survival mode of just going through the motions every day. And I think having that, pulling back and seeing things from that perspective is huge. That's a huge part of vision, is just being able to take that viewpoint. But vision also connects us really to our purpose. And it uses our gifts and our talents and our strengths. And it's not just sight with our eyes. Like when we talk about vision, it's not just seeing something with our physical eyes. It's seeing something with it's insight. So vision isn't just sight, it's insight. It's something that doesn't exist right now in what we can see, but it's something that exists that we know is in the future that we're trying to connect with. So when we think about boundaries, that perspective is everything, because a boundary, we may have a boundary that's present now, but seeing past that boundary that doesn't exist yet is powerful, because that's what is going to keep us motivated to keep moving forward. And how important is that? If we were just really focused on our here and our now and our present circumstances, that's not very motivating. At least it wasn't for me. I had to see past that. I had to see my potential. I had to see, where was that thing that I really, part of my purpose that I really wanted to cultivate and bring to life. That's what keeps me going. It's really not just about today.
Hmm. This is so powerful. Sometimes I think we forget that this is an option to see past
Mm-hmm.
our boundaries and think about, if I could create over there, beyond that wall, beyond that boundary, what would I create there? What do I wish for? I think, well, I know our brains are neurologically wired towards thinking of the negative. That's just the way we're
Yeah.
wired as humans, but to realize that we can actually imagine something different and do that and start somewhere to see that happen. I really love that. And this is why I love the work that you do as a vision coach. You help people really pull back and have that bird's eye view, because you remind people that the vision that they wanted for their life, say when we were 10, remember when we were kids, we had
Mm,
visions of what we wanted our life to be. And it's never too late for us to create that for ourselves
never.
and
No.
what we desire to create in the world. Um, that and it takes a lot of it takes creativity, and it's interesting. You and I, we actually worked together in creativity. That's how we started working together, and we discovered that about 75% of people don't actually think they're creative, and so no wonder this idea of pushing boundaries is tough.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you make such a good point. Again, it's that understanding, and I mentioned how our gifts and our talents and our strengths also play a part in how we move boundaries. Boundary, or I was going to say, vision actually simplifies things in a lot of ways. So when we think about moving boundaries and we think about how our vision can be simplified, it helps put our priorities in order. It helps make sense of how we are positioning everything. And when we start simplifying and we start disciplining ourselves to be able to see things in a way that puts our purpose in the forefront, it makes decisions easier. It makes everything easier. And what ends up happening is we actually accelerate when that happens. So you said, yeah, it's never too late. It really is never too late. I don't care what age you are listening to this. If you think you're past your prime, you think your ship has sailed, I'm here to tell you it has not. It's never too late, because there is such a thing as that acceleration, and it's an amazing thing when you really put focus, uh, power and focus, really, and you start positioning things and focusing on things the way that that you need to simplify. Simplicity is a lost, it's a lost thing these days. I find everybody's way too complicated, everybody's way too cluttered, and there's just too much of that. And I think simplicity is something I just strive for. I try and just grab hold of because it brings a calm, it brings a clarity like nothing else. So I hope that was helpful, but it just to really put things, priorities in order to in order to move forward. Yeah.
Yes. I loved how, and we even had this conversation once, like off screen, where we were talking about how in order to push a boundary, you need to come in first.
Yes. Yeah.
Heighten.
And how do we do that? It's through what you bring to this discussion, which is belonging. Like, why do we need belonging to be
Mm.
able to push boundaries, Connie? How does that
Well,
work?
well, what I have found is that when you're here, when you're getting vision, you need people. You need safe people around you to kind of be your bottom hands and to say, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can do it.
Hmm.
That bravery comes from community, the right community. But at
Yeah.
some point, if you stay here in that community all the time, you're never going to get out of your comfort zone. To push a boundary means I need to face a wilderness of sometimes going alone. I was just listening to Erwin McManus this week, and he talked about people don't know what's possible until you actually go out and create it first, which is lonely. And we
Yeah.
don't talk enough about that. We don't talk about the brave belonging that's going to be needed in order to be able to go out there and create, because no one else is doing it yet. No one else might
Yeah.
have your vision or your dream. And there you are, you're trying to do it, but it hasn't been done yet. You got to have that brave belonging.
Oh, that is such a good point you bring up because I am so with you. Community and connection are absolutely so foundational to the core of what we need. I think we were created to be in community and to that. That's just one of the aspects of our lives that I think is very, very important. But it can also be a crutch if we're not careful. So you're right. When that belonging is absolutely there for a purpose. But I do believe, along with you, that there are seasons where stepping out and having that, if you want to call it a wilderness experience or that aloneness in that, that's where the real growth takes place. Like that's where you take what you've learned and you've cultivated in community and that safety, and now you've it's like you have the skills to be able to step out in that, because you're right, your path is probably unique to you, and sometimes you can't take community into that unique path. You can have them on the sidelines helping you, cheer you on, but you really can't take that along, that community aspect along with you all the time on the journey.
Yes. And isn't that so interesting? Like even how you and I work as friends. You know,
Mhm.
you're in your wilderness, you're out there creating, but you have me as a support, but I can't do the things that you need to do, and vice versa, where we can
Yeah.
only create what we're meant to create. And so I really think that that is something that needs to be discussed more. And we're actually going to be leading people through a very special workshop. If you're in Calgary, if you're listening and you're in Calgary on November 15th, we're actually having an event where we're going to actually be able to walk you through the steps of how do you push boundaries bravely and with wisdom. We don't want to just be reckless. And so I'm excited to be doing this with you, Kim. I think
Yes.
it's going to be a great event. I mean, some people listening aren't in Calgary, and that's okay, because that's why we're doing this podcast. We're giving some value, but we're going to take this a little bit deeper, and it's going to be a great conversation because we're not hearing a lot about this right now.
No, and even how creativity plays a role in that. So we didn't get into that aspect today, but absolutely that is a vital part of the journey as well, and how that connects with taking more territory and moving boundaries. So we're going to discuss that as well.
Yes. And I mean, if you're listening, I would love to leave you with a question of what do you want to create outside the boundary walls? I would love to leave you with that question as a listener. What do you want to create? outside of the boundary? And have you even thought that that's an option for you? Because that's not reserved for the chosen few. That is actually for all of us to think about, what do we want to create in our homes? What do we
Mhm.
want to create in our schools? What do we want to create in our workplaces or wherever we reside? What's on your heart? That, just pay attention to that today and maybe let that ruminate a little bit in your heart. But also, just I want to put a plug out there too for you as well, Kim. Like, you and I, we both coach women on this.
Mhm.
You coach women in getting that clear vision, and I coach women on how to launch that vision. And so we complement one another very well. And so,
Yeah.
maybe someone's listening and they're thinking, you know what, I actually need some help with this. And if you do, reach out to us, because I would hate for us to end this podcast without a way for you to know that there are ways for you to get the help that you need to see you move forward in your life.
Yes, absolutely. I so agree. And yeah, we do play a little bit of a different role in the way that we coach, but it's all connected. So if somebody's out there, this is kind of the dream team. I'll call this the dream team, Connie, today, the creativity team. But yeah, absolutely. This is a good place to start.
Awesome. Well, Kim, I just want to thank you so much for being on the podcast with me today, the Brave podcast,
Thank you,
to talk
Connie.
about this. You're such a gift to the world. And I'll make sure that Kim's info is in the show notes if you want to get in touch with her on her website or email. But in the meantime, everyone, keep being brave.